Hello, everybody. It is great to be here one more time today. And my name is Gary Fowler, and I'm the CEO, president, and founder of GSD Gets You Done Venture Studios, a premier AI and quantum venture studio located in the heart of Silicon Valley. I'm a 17-time serial entrepreneur with several unicorns under the belt. I was on the original management team at Click Software, which was sold to Salesforce for $1.35 billion, and also one of the co-founders of Eva.ai, an AI HR tech company. We believe at GST that intellectual capacity is evenly spread around the world, but opportunities are not. Today, we have 153 companies inside of GST from 59 countries around the world. So we believe that we can make the world a bit better place. And with that, I have my incredible guest, Bill Reichert. Bill is a Harvard undergraduate, Stanford MBA. He's a very good friend of mine. He's an author. He's a venture capitalist. He's one of the legends of Silicon Valley. He's Guy Kawasaki's former partner at Garage Technology Ventures, and himself. He's not only a VC, but he's an entrepreneur that makes it happen. Today, we're going to talk about the top 10 VC secrets that entrepreneurs need to know, but VCs won't tell them. So with that, I'd like to bring the incredible Bill Reichert on board. Hey, Bill, how are you today?
I am great, Gary. Thank you so much. Appreciate the opportunity to be with you here today.
Yeah, always nice to see you. So, Bill, you've seen a lot of ups and downs and ins and outs of the Valley. And, if you look at it, we've seen the e-commerce revolution take place in the late 90s and then the dot-com debacle. We've seen financial crises. We now see this evolution of things like GPUs and quantum and generative AI. What's the temperature in the market today in Silicon Valley? How does it really feel?
It's interesting. It is sort of a tale of two cities in terms of sort of the underlying energy of innovation and entrepreneurship on the one hand, and the uncertainty around the venture capital funding on the other. But I'll tell you, I mean, my experience is that the entrepreneurs are more energetic and passionate and innovative than ever before. I mean, I see no diminution whatsoever of the energy around innovation. But I do hear that some number of my brethren in the VC world are being sort of much more cautious, sort of outside of the generative AI space. So it's at some level as though generative AI is sort of sucking all the oxygen out of the traditional VC space. It's interesting though, because we here at Pegasus, we focus on strategic investing on behalf of our corporate limited partners. And looking at the strategic investment firms, the corporate VCs, and what we're seeing is actually very little pullback on the corporate VC side. It is somewhat ironic that in traditional cycles, I don't know if you remember, sort of in traditional cycles, the rap on the corporates was that, they'd get scared and run away. And it was those, the VCs who stuck with it. And in this cycle, it seems as though it's the VCs that are running away and the corporates are sticking with it. And part of the reason for that is that the corporates, they have a much broader requirement in terms of the types of technologies and investments that they need to make. And what has happened, in the last 10 and 20 years is that the corporates have finally caught on that they really have no choice. I mean, they have got to innovate. And so many more corporations now.
I got a question for you.
Yeah.
Now, what happens if they don't innovate?
Yeah. What do you think happens if they don't innovate?
They
stagnate. Yeah. I mean, again, they don't die. They don't die.
But it's a slow death. It's a slow death. It's a competitor.
Right. I mean, what's I don't know. We'll see. but they wind up, what they do is they sort of start hiving off some of the, acquisitions that they made in the previous 10 years, or some of the business units that aren't doing so well. And they sort of shrink and shrivel. They don't really die, but so I don't know. But it's, nevertheless, it's not good. It's not good if they don't. So yeah, and so that is interesting what we're seeing on the corporate side. And the other thing that I think is great, that's great for the innovation ecosystem, is that corporates have a much longer time frame than VCs do. And so, for example, because of our corporate backers, we are one of the most prolific investors in quantum computing in Silicon Valley. Which means we made 4 investments in quantum computing, because our corporate partners, they're thinking, well, maybe 5 years, but it's probably more 10, 15, 20 years. But that's our mandate. Our mandate is, what is our company going to look like in 2030? What's going to look like in 2040? What's it going to look like in 2050? And so they've got a much longer time horizon, which is great for innovators, particularly in spaces like, quantum computing, or in climate tech and clean tech, which have these really long time horizons. So it's, and that's the sort of this tale of two cities thing that I'm talking about. But
well, I mean,
so yeah,
you got a over a $2 billion fund, and you look at it, you say the corporates are really taking off, and it's moving in the right direction. Generative AI is getting funded. I mean, we're seeing that with a lot of the companies. 2 of the companies inside of GSD in this current cohort we have in the last 8 weeks, 2 of them have already gotten term sheets, and which is unprecedented. I've never seen. These are Gen AI companies, right? And they've got some revenue, but I've never seen anything like that before, like this quickly. It's like, if you don't get the deal, somebody else does, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, and Gary, you have seen this before. I know you have. I mean, in every cycle, there are these, sort of, there are these, the Gartner hype cycle, right? I mean, you see these companies that, just kind of get extraordinary funding. It was interesting that, what was it, 5, 6, 7 years ago, all of a sudden there was an explosion of chip companies. I mean, so Silicon Valley, it was a dirty little secret, but Silicon Valley had not really seen a lot of chip companies in like almost 20 years, right? I mean, it was, VCs were not funding chip companies. And then because of AI, on the one hand, and, which relates also to the NVIDIA phenomenon and the Google TPU phenomenon, you had all of these innovators, entrepreneurs rushing in to invent a whole new generation of chips. And so, and a lot of venture funding went into a lot of chip companies, and, we'll see how it goes. We have invested ourselves in a couple of chip companies. And again, that was kind of a new thing for venture capital, in the last 20 years. So we are seeing some very interesting, sort of hype cycles. And Gen AI is the new hype cycle. And I'll tell you, I mean, God, I love Gen AI, and but it is really hard to figure out, how do you pick a winner in this space? But, we had this before. It used to be in the .com era. All you had to do was say .com, and I could get pets.com.
I remember the sock puppet.
Right. And then we had Web 2 when we had mobile apps, and all I had to do is have a mobile app, and boom, I could get funded. So, I mean, we've seen this before. I'm not saying that the underlying technology isn't phenomenal. I'm just saying from an investor point of view, it's pretty challenging. And I do feel for the entrepreneurs who, both the entrepreneurs who are the 15th, Gen AI app to help you with your marketing messaging. I mean, or the whatever. And I also feel for the entrepreneurs who, they look around and all they can see are the rear ends of VCs racing toward Gen AI companies and saying, hey, wait, what about us? What about us?
Yeah, no, you're right. And though, we wanted to talk about the VC secrets that you need to know, but the VCs won't tell them. What are some of those secrets that are out there that the startups need to know about that they're not going to hear from the VCs?
Yeah, well, my sort of greatest epiphany when I crossed over from being an entrepreneur to becoming a VC was I discovered that, contrary to popular wisdom, VCs do not invest with their brains; they invest with their hearts.
Yeah.
Nobody believes this, but when I was an entrepreneur, I had some just phenomenal access to some phenomenal, Silicon Valley VCs, and I thought the secret to raising money from VCs was my 56 slide deck and, data and evidence and graphs and charts and logic and just passion and compelling and boom, right? And then when I crossed over and we started Garage Technology Ventures, Guy and I thought, okay, let's be disciplined about this. Let's see the degree to which we can be sort of evidence-based, data-driven VC investors, right? That's what we were going to do. And we were going to be, we were going to figure out, the startup genome project. What are the key elements to success for a startup? And figure out a rubric and a score sheet, and we'd quantify and blah, 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 blah. And we discovered, that was just so much bullpucky, right? And I started watching how all my fellow VCs and how we were making investment decisions. And this was my epiphany. I was watching, VCs invest. And what I realized was, it wasn't the data, the logic, the evidence. It was, could an entrepreneur get a VC to fall in love with them? And so
you need to get them to fall in love with you.
You got to get them to fall in love. And that sounds crazy. It sounds crazy, but the reality is that there's so much data out there about cool technology, and this is our tech stack, and these are our specs. And I mean, entrepreneurs are nuts. The entrepreneurs that get your attention, the entrepreneurs that sort of wind up in the partners meeting, are the ones that can, right from the start, they can get, they get my heart beating faster, they get my pulse racing, they get me to say, wow, you can do that? That's an wow is not an intellectual response, right? Mm-hmm. Wow is an emotional response. And, generally I get some entrepreneurs saying, Bill, I didn't think VCs had hearts, right? But, but, believe it or not, you look around, you watch what VCs do, and really what happens is they fall in love with deals. This is the practical reality of being an entrepreneur. You've got to get the VC to fall in love with you, but then they've got to have enough in their brains that they can go back to their partners, right? They can go back to their partners and say, oh yes, well, they have this and this and this and this, and here's their compelling value proposition and their sustainable competitive advantage and their go-to-market. You got to have all that stuff, but to separate you from everyone else, you got to get them to fall in love. So that's VC secret number one that nobody tells you, right? I mean, I've never heard a VC get on stage and say, we don't invest with our brains, we invest with our hearts.
Yeah, never.
Right. But that is, that's the practical reality out there. So now, Gary, I'm worried you're frozen. Are we having an internet
Yeah, it looks like we're having an internet problem. I hear you clearly, but it looks like the internet, for whatever reason, is frozen.
Huh. So now, is this a problem for us,
No,
or
no, it's not a problem. It's still broadcasting, so
okay?
we're still
All
live.
right.
They're going to hear a voice and going down through it, which is fine. But it's for whatever reason. Welcome to Silicon Valley, Bill.
Oh my God, yes, exactly right. Okay. Well, in any case, so shall we just keep going?
Yeah, yeah. Let's keep going. No, this is fantastic.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So that was my, sort of my big epiphany when I crossed over, um, to becoming a VC from all those years as an entrepreneur. I started or restarted or co-founded 4 different companies before Guy and I started Garage, and went through, sort of all of the normal ups and downs of Silicon Valley. You know, 2 of my companies crashed and burned, but 2 of my companies went public. So, batting 500 was not too bad. But so, the other thing that I learned, when I crossed over, is that entrepreneurs, are coached about how they have to have vision, they've got to have passion, and it's the why that wins, right? It's this vision of making a dent in the universe. And yeah, a lot of entrepreneurs, sort of focus on, their vision, their why, we're going to change the world. And that gets a certain amount of attention, but that's table stakes. That's table stakes if you're an entrepreneur. And the reality is, should I do something about my internet here? And
Yeah, yeah. I think the internet is, what we could do, Bill, is we could come back into this thing. I think one of our internet connections is down. Or
huh.
I see that I have a full internet, but um, I,
Yeah, it might, and maybe it's here, maybe it's mine.
it could be mine too. I don't know, but anyhow, yeah,
Mhm.
there we are. We're back in.
We are okay.
We don't see me. Well, that's weird.
Okay.
Hi, you don't see my picture. Let's see.
So now
Can you hear me?
I hear you. I hear you. Your voice
I
was not
guess I guess we're having a technical problem.
huh.
Okay. Well, anyhow, I can do it with
Yeah.
just you. Maybe it's better that I don't have me on there for this because I can just interview you. So, as you're going down through, you've seen these cycles take place. What do these entrepreneurs need to look for today, Bill? Hello? Can you hear me, Bill?
I hear you now. Do you hear
Okay.
me?
Yeah, yeah, I hear you clearly.
Huh. Okay. Do you see me moving?
I see you perfectly. I just don't see me.
Yeah, I don't see you either.
I don't know. It's really weird. It's I don't want to pull myself off because it might turn the broadcast off. But we'll go down through and edit it. It's not a problem.
Yeah.
So we
Okay.
going down through this
Yeah.
process, Bill. What
Right.
are the so if you're looking at the startups out there today, I guess a
Yeah.
couple things. What do the startups do that are non-Gen AI companies today in order to be able to get funded? What do they need to do? That's store number one is, and
Yeah. Yeah.
there's a
Yeah.
lot of noise with these Gen AI companies. How do the
Yeah.
Gen AI companies really differentiate themselves today?
Yeah. 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 So yeah. So on the first side, uh, again, as I was saying, I don't know if it came through or not, that a lot of entrepreneurs think that it's about their passion and vision, and the reality is that that's table stakes we want to see that, but really, really, really what we want to see is their ability to execute and sell. And, I can't tell you how often it happens that we meet a startup and can you still hear me?
Yeah, I hear you perfectly. I was trying to get
right.
my video on.
All right. I can't tell you how often it is that we meet a startup and, they tell us their story, right? And, and we ask, sort of what's their momentum, what's their traction? And they say, well, we did this, we launched whatever 6 months ago, and we already have, 12,000 downloads and blah, blah, blah. And, we've got 25% month over month growth. And okay, that's fine. And, so, and they're telling us about all these things that are going to happen in the next 1, 2, 3 months. Well, what entrepreneurs don't appreciate is that the funding cycle generally takes 2, 3, 4 months. And so if you make a promise that, this is going to happen in the next month or two, and, 2 months later, we're kind of, trying to get through the process and trying to get the funding done, and we are monitoring your performance, and we see that, you haven't hit the things that you promised to hit in the next couple of months, we're kind of going, wait a second, I understand that things don't always happen the way you want them to happen, but VCs have a choice between teams that execute and sell and teams that, promise but don't execute. Mm-hmm. And so you really, really, really have got to be good at execution. You've got to be good at sales. And that just gets so understated, I think, in this whole venture world that, we talk about traction, right? But the word sales is just, it's weirdly a pejorative term, it seems, in the entrepreneur ecosystem. God bless Steve Blank, but it's not, it's customer discovery, right? It's customer development, whatever, right? Yeah. But God, it's selling. Can you sell, right?
Yeah, that's right. If you can't do any sales, it doesn't matter, right? If you can't show that you can.
Yeah, but in every culture, we sort of deprecate salespeople, right? Right? No kid ever says, when I grow up, I want to be a salesperson, right?
No.
Right? But if you want to be an entrepreneur, you gosh darn better want to be a salesperson, because you are always selling. You have to be selling all the time. It's, whether it's investors or customers or recruits or partners, you are selling all the time. So, and again, that doesn't mean you have to be as a trained salesman, but you better have a passion for, getting your point across and getting people to believe in what you're saying, which is, kind of the core. So again, that's, I don't know. That's, I think, one of the secrets that you don't hear a lot in the entrepreneur ecosystem, the sort of critical importance of being good at sales. It's a sort of framework, theoretical rubric about business model canvas and customer discovery and whatever, get out there and sell. So that's, kind of another one of my discoveries, in crossing over from being into the VC world and listening to what, sort of the talk is, sort of in the VC entrepreneur world. So that's just another one of my secrets.
There's so many, and we're coming up to the top of the show, and if you could stay online after we close down, that would be great. But what are closing thoughts, Bill, and what's the best way for the startups to get a hold of you?
Yeah. So, closing thoughts. and Gary, my whole sort of key philosophy of venture capital and entrepreneurship is that the number one thing you've got to have as an entrepreneur is you've got to have a compelling value proposition. And so many entrepreneurs miss this point. They talk about their product, they talk about their technology, they may talk about, some other names that they can drop. We've got a pilot going with ABC, but they're not good at articulating what is compelling about their value proposition in sort of real quantitative economic terms that is going to make their offering a no-brainer to the customers. So it may be elegant technology, it may be new technology, it may be cool technology, and this is the issue with generative AI, is so many generative AI companies have something that's cool, but what's the compelling value proposition? What is it going to do that is going to make a sort of 10x shift in terms of what their customers, their users, can accomplish that has real value? So my number one sort of summary thought is make sure that you are crystal clear on what your compelling value proposition is, and that you can always articulate it clearly and credibly with everybody you meet. So, as an entrepreneur, you're always selling. You always need to be able to say, what is your compelling value proposition? Not just, we have an AI that enables you to edit your marketing materials so that it's more personalized. Okay, so do 25 other startups, right? What is your compelling value proposition that makes you unique, that makes you 10 times better than any of those other startups? Because that's what you need to differentiate yourself. So in terms of how to reach me, I am Bill at PegasusVentures.com. You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm not great at LinkedIn, but I'm also on LinkedIn. And you can always sort of get my attention by telling me that you bought my book and you have a question about, one of the sections, on page 83. That'll get my attention.
There you go. So remember, page 83, and you got a question.
So
Actually,
yes,
tell them about your book, Bill. Tell them a little bit about your book so they know where to look. Which
the
book?
The name of the book is Getting to Wow: Silicon Valley Pitch Secrets for Entrepreneurs. Available at an Amazon.com near you, and that's that's definitely one way to get my attention. So with that, Gary, do you have any other?
Well, that's it. I want to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule. Sorry about the technical difficulties, but that's showbiz, unfortunately, and Silicon Valley. Anyhow, to all my audience out there, thank you one more time for joining GSD Presents Silicon Valley AI and Tech. My name is Gary Fowler, and I'm your host. Stay happy, stay safe, and stay healthy, and I'll be back to you again next week with another exciting edition. Take care, everybody, and thanks, Bill. If you can hang on the line, that would be great. Hold on.